For the learners who've tried the challenge, hopefully you succeeded in that and found it quite entertaining. For those who didn't do the challenge, I'm now going to show you how you can set up, let's say, 3 targets and get the character to endlessly loop between them, walking from one target to the next in a very kind of linear fashion. Okay, now for the final game itself, we are going to be putting in some fuzzy logic. We're going to be getting a certain amount of randomness between these targets to make the character look as though he's sort of intelligent and he's going to be making his own decisions as to where he goes. So first of all, we have our target cube. What we're going to do, if we've clicked on it, we're going to go to edit and duplicate. The shortcut is Control+D, so I'm going to do that now, Control+D. So we have 3 cubes now. So for this cube, I'm going to maybe move this one just up here. Okay. And instead of it being called target cube with the 1 on it, I'm going to call this one target cube 2. And then this one, I'm probably going to get him to walk all the way back around here, actually. So he would have to go from there to there, all the way back around here, and then all the way back to there again. Let me just make sure that all of these are actually on the nav mesh. They're all in the blue areas, which is good, so we're okay. And I'll call this one target cube 3. Great. Okay, so now we need to go back to our script and make some changes. Okay, so first of all, we now have 3 targets. So I'm going to call this first target, target 1. Now whenever I make a change like that, I'm going to get this like little red squiggly line under the old target telling me, well, the name target does not exist anymore. So I need to change that to target 1. Okay, the red squiggly line disappears and it goes grey when I hover over it, okay, in order to show where they're connected to. Okay, so I'm going to highlight this. I can go to edit and copy, or Control+C, press enter, and then edit and paste, or Control+V. Okay, and I'm going to call this one target 2. Remember that you can't have the same transform having the same name between 2 things. They have to be individual names, unique names. So this one has to be target 3. Okay, so now if I save that, just minimize this a second, let me go back to my enemy 1. And now we can see we have 3 slots. Now remember the cube that we put into the first one, that's disappeared now because we changed the name of this first variable. Whenever you do that, it loses its connection to what it was in the game. So target cube into target 1, target cube 2 into target 2, target cube 3 into target 3. Great, so now it can associate where it wants to go. Okay, so now we need a little bit more in the top here. Okay, so I'm going to create a private transform. Now what this means is that it won't show up in the inspector, because we don't need it to show up in the inspector. This is simply for the computer's use, so it knows where to go to. I'm going to call this one target position. Okay, and that's going to store where the actual objects are located. And then I need some way of actually switching the code on and off in what I call the light switch method. So once again, it's going to be private, so it doesn't show up in the inspector. This time it's going to be a bool, which is basically a boolean. So it can either be true or false, on or off, etc. And I'm going to call this one contact. and I'm going to set it to false to begin with, so in other words it's not on to begin with. Alright, so now under the start I need to set this target position to equal target 1 in order to get the character to start walking toward that target. So transform, target position equals target 1. Okay, so now basically it's saying this target position, which is recording the location of the current target. The current target should be target 1. Okay, and then instead of calling the move to target in the start, which I'm now going to remove, we're going to put a new function in here. And in fact, this update, I'm going to remove this altogether because we don't need this at the moment. Okay, so this one is a private void, and it's on trigger enter. So if you remember, we used this before for the one-shot sound, and it's going to be collider other. Oh, okay, it already completed it for me. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. So I need to now say if other, which is the collider, dot game object dot compare tag, and I need to tell it what tag to compare. So it's going to be now what did we call them? Click on one of these cubes and take a look at the tag. It's called enemy target. It has to be spelled exactly like that. Enemy target. I can see that I've not spelled that correct. Okay. And then curly brackets. And then I need to check if contact is equal to false. Now obviously I've put in two equals there, so when you've got one equals, it basically sets the object on the left to match the object on the right. Okay, when you have two equals, what it's saying is that the object on the left should be compared to the object on the right, and if it is equal to that value, go ahead and do something. Alright, so there is a difference between one equals and two equals. So we're checking if contact is currently equal to false. We can see that it is. We've already set it to false. So as long as it's doing that, we can now run the rest of this function. First of all, we need to set contact to true. So contact equals true. What that's going to do, it's going to switch off this trigger enter. It's almost like a detection, if you like. It's detecting if our character is entering the trigger of the cube. Now, because our character might actually be inside of the cube for about 3 or 4 seconds, he could effectively be triggering it 60 or 70 times. If that's the case, then whatever we put inside of this function is going to be fired off like 60 or 70 times. We only want it to do it once. So by instantly switching it to true, we are disabling this trigger enter from running again and again and again. We are ensuring that it only runs once. Okay, now we're going to say that our current target, which we've not yet set up, so let me do that now. So I'm going to serialize this one so that we can actually see it in the inspector. So serialize field, current target. Okay, I have to tell it what it is. So it is actually an integer. Okay, so current target, and that's the name of it. Okay, why is it not liking this int? Let me try it again. Okay, so I put a capital on there. So an integer is obviously just a whole number, and the current target is going to store whatever that whole number is. Okay, so now what we say is current target plus plus, whoops, plus plus, which basically means add 1 to the value of current target. Alright, so if it starts off at 0, and in fact we can actually make sure that it does start off at, well, it should start off at 1, I think, so equals 1. So if it starts off at 1, we're going to add 1 to it, so it should become 2. The next time that we enter the cube, it should become 3. But what happens when it gets above 3? Okay, so we need to make sure that it never gets above 3. So to do that, we need to create a cap. If current target is greater than 3, we need to set current target to 1. So in other words, we're going to go right back to where it started. Okay, so that makes sure that it can never go above 3, because obviously we only have 3 targets. So then we want to move it right back to where it started. Okay, and then once all that is done, we want to move to target. Move to target, which is then going to run this function at the bottom, which is going to start moving the character towards the position. Alright, so let's move down to this one. We need to do a little bit more work in here as well. So as you can see, it's a lot more complex than just the code required to move the character to one target. So we're going to say if current target is equal to 1. And we're going to say that our target position equals target 1. Now I'm just going to copy all of this. So edit and copy, press enter, and then edit and paste. I'm going to say if current target is equal to 2, the target position should equal target 2. Okay, that's a little bit annoying that it just starts getting rid of everything. Now let's click edit and paste. So finally, current target is equal to 3. Then we want target position to equal target 3. Okay, now when we move the component, what we're going to tell it, instead of target 1.position, we're going to get rid of target 1. And we're going to replace it with target position. Target position dot transform. Oh, sorry, dot position rather. Okay, so once we've done that, it will now know which cube it should be added towards. Okay, based on when it enters the trigger. So when it enters a cube, the first time it enters a cube, it will add 1 to the value, so it understands it has to go toward target 2. The next time it hits the cube, it will add another 1 to the target, so it knows it has to go toward cube 3. The next time it hits a cube, it will then run this cap, setting the target back to 1, whereby it will then go to the first cube. Now finally, to make sure that this can work over and over again with the light switch method, we need to set contact back to false. Okay, only once we get to the end of this. So now we're going to say contact equals false. Alright, and then obviously it can start detecting triggers again. So hopefully that should work. Let's just save this. Every time that you save, go back into Unity, it's compiling the script at the moment, and we need to check for errors. Let's go to the console. We don't have any errors, so the code is looking good so far. And just make sure that the code is currently attached to the enemy, and we can see we've got all 3 cubes, and our first current target is number 1.